Hello, good evening, and welcome. Our top story today focuses on geopolitics. What's new? But why the best way is for South Africa not to get involved, but to step aside while the elephants are flattening the grass. The latest development is between the United States and its NATO allies. This because of Donald Trump's determination to acquire the biggest real estate deal in history, the purchase of Greenland. The world's reaction to Donald Trump's demand that Greenland be sold to the United States may be moving from "what a joke" to resigned acceptance. Despite threats that this could destroy a NATO alliance which for over half a century has kept humanity safe from a third world war, the White House is now moving ahead with all due haste. Over the weekend, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent justified what would be the largest property acquisition in history, transacted by the U.S.'s first president who had a career in real estate.
If there were an attack on Greenland from Russia, from some other area, we would get dragged in. So better now, peace through strength, make it part of the United States, and there will not be a conflict because the United States right now, we are the hottest country in the world. We are the strongest country in the world. The Europeans project weakness. The U.S. projects strength.
On the other side of the Atlantic, hostility appears to be giving way to, acceptance.
So what's Denmark's strategy going forward?
It's definitely to try and pursue a more measured discussion in this working group that they set up. They're supposed to meet within the next few weeks and then every 2 or 3 weeks following that. There's still some debate between Copenhagen and Washington what this working group is set out to achieve. Is it still for the U.S. to take over Greenland, or is it to try and find a diplomatic solution where maybe Denmark agrees to more military, NATO steps up its presence? But I think for now, Denmark is just really happy that there seems to be a path forward where they can talk in a more closed room with other diplomats.
So what's going on? Has Trump gone mad? Or perhaps not. As highly respected historian and best-selling author Neil Ferguson shared with Coleman Hughes of the Free Press, this may well be part of a well-designed strategy.
Because Richard Nixon liked to tell Henry Kissinger to tell the Soviets and the North Vietnamese that Nixon was so crazy that he was capable of doing anything, even going nuclear. It was Madman theory. That was how they talked about it. The problem was that the Soviets didn't think Richard Nixon was really mad. They thought he was a ruthless political calculator, and so it didn't work. But Mike Pompeo said, I remember a year or two ago, with Trump, he didn't have to tell anybody that Trump was crazy and might be a madman. He had CNN doing that for him every night. So Trump's a successful version of Madman theory. The Russians, the Iranians, everybody now understands that he's capable of taking great risks. Scott Bessent said a couple of months ago, the president has a higher risk appetite than I do. Scott Bessent used to run George Soros's hedge fund. So his risk appetite is, let's put it this way, in the tail of the distribution. Trump is even more ready to take risk.
The message for Pretoria and for us here in this part of the African continent, BizNews columnist Dirk Hartford offers some wise counsel in a piece for us today where he writes, quote, South Africa should seek to maintain its non-aligned posture in these times in a way that doesn't further antagonize the bully, but also doesn't alienate the BRICS countries. It can't be one way or another, no matter how much the current scenario is demanding that one takes sides. While Greenland seems to be capturing everybody's attention at the moment, best we don't forget that there's still a matter of Iran. Now, you will recall that Donald Trump warned the Iranians that had they decided to execute any of the protesters, there would be swift and strong retribution. The supreme leader of Iran, who's been in that position for 37 years, 8 years before that he was the president, so clearly been running the place for long enough, admitted over the weekend that several thousand protesters had been, and in his words, brutally executed. Well, lest we forget, the Americans are sending the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Force to the Persian Gulf. It will arrive in a week's time. Here's Iranian South African Iraj Abedian.
Yeah, it is. Iran is sitting literally, both the Iranian nation and the Iranian regime, sitting on a knife edge, literally. And the next 3 days, much is expected to happen based on what President Trump has made announcements and commitments. Within the country, it is a war condition, a war between a nation that feels kept hostage, surrounded, and a regime that has increasingly, as I've said many times, and many hundreds of other better informed analysts globally have mentioned it over the past 2 decades. It's a regime that has lost total legitimacy, total efficacy in managing the country, and has gone beyond any moral, never mind religious, ethical bounds. Therefore, the regime is fighting for its own survival, and the nation, after 47 years and repeated uprising under different pretexts or championing different causes, ranging from fair elections to women's rights to all kinds of real legitimate causes. This time around, the message is very different. It is not about legitimate or fair voter participation or voter counting. It's not about only women's rights. It is about life. People say they've had enough. We're not going to stay and die slowly. And the messages are quite stark and very clear. They say the regime must go, the dictator must stop and be toppled, and of course there is a whole spectrum of political stance. Those who cannot wait to take revenge after 40 years. Some of them have lost many members. Some of them are rotting in prisons. And of course, what has also changed this time around, it is not just women or youth or rich or poor. It is for the first time from north to south, east to west, tribal affiliation, ideological affiliation, economic classes. You have for the first time the bazaar, which is the hub of conservative religious financiers of the regime in the early days, and mobilizing against in their favor. They came out first in this case, simply because the currency is losing. It's on a free fall. Its economic implosion is a reality beyond even the most conservative bazaar traders and investors.
Hermanus is a man from this windy little town called Yaku. Sorry, other way around. Yaku's from Hermanus. Yaku, we need to talk about your upgrade problem.
I don't have an upgrade problem.
2 Audis, an Opel, a Kia, and a Hyundai. It's 5 cars, Yaku. Denial.
I just love cars. And we buy cars that make it so much easier for you and convenient to sell your car. You want to try it?
Okay, just once. Turn off the cameras. I see how this is addictive. Take 2 of those. WeBuyCars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
South Africa's favorite stockbroker, David Shapiro, has shared a number of pearls in our recent in-depth interview. And so we're sharing some of them with you, including the one tonight, where he bemoans how South African companies have regressed from moonshots to clearance sales. Clearance sales versus moonshots.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
Moonshots, I'm talking technology. In other words, getting to the moon, moving forward, moving. When I look at AI now, I'm absolutely taken away what this can do and where it's going and how it's going to improve productivity. We need it here. We need it in a big way. We need the data centers. We need the young people to design or to help businesses now start to use AI and to move forward. I'm sure that there are a lot of kids like that who are well. What's happening now is that when I say clearance sales, where's this economy going? Just look at the companies that we like. They're all going down to the bottom end of the market. For example, and I love the company Pepco and it's doing incredibly well servicing the informal sector. But that's where our focus is. It's down at the bottom. How can we make money out of these poor people who have never been banked or haven't got the money and that? And that's where the rush is. How many bankers are going to try and get into that area? Look at who's the most successful retailer, Boxer, ShopRite, or at those levels. And I'm saying, hold on a sec. Let's get the bar up. Let's become a tech hub for Africa or do things like that. Let's start thinking that way rather than trying to service the the poverty-stricken people or those who haven't got the money. That's what I want. Let's develop. Let's try, and there's going to be room. There's going to be plenty of room for us to build our own apps, to build our own data centers, to use those these new applications to help, to build factories here. I know that you're not going to employ people, but to become an area of expertise. And that's where that's where we kind of fallen behind. You go look at the JSE. Other than Tencent through Naspers and Process, there's not much. It's a very old economy, JSE.
What's your advice then to a young entrepreneur?
There's another problem. Sorry, I should have mentioned it. You go to our bank. You go to a bank and say, I want money to start this business. They'll look at you and say, no. First of all, you've got to give me collateral here. You've got to give me your wife, your children, your home, everything before I lend you money. We don't do that. There's no VC money. There's no venture capital money here to allow these poor people, when I say poor, I mean to people to advance businesses. We haven't got that mindset that is available in America or other countries. America, there's an abundance of investment capital to allow these entrepreneurs to develop. We don't have it. So don't tell me Standard Bank, First Rand, Investec, none of it. You will not get $1, a rand out of them to start a venture like that. They just have not got the mentality. And that's a massive problem. And I say it's a massive problem because our banks don't lend money.
This evening's wealth building tip comes from personal finance guru Magnus Heystek, who tells us that the old perception of comfortable retirement is out of the window. And he explains why.
This concern of mine has been coming for a very, very long time. And in fact, if you go back in time, 20 years ago, I wrote a book on retirement planning, wherein I warned that don't believe in these fancy projections, which are pumped out in the media by the asset managers, the banks, the mortgage originators that, put away X amount for over a 30 to 40 year and you can comfortably retire. And we know that's rubbish because there's a lot of reasons for that. And one is but primarily the prime reason are the following. For the last 15 years, South Africa's GDP per capita has been declining. And a lot of people don't think it's an issue, but it is a big number over time. If your per capita of a country starts shrinking and declining steadily year after year, it means someone in that group of people is getting poorer or all the time. That's the picture since 2010, 2011, which is facts. There's no disputing the facts. South Africa, the middle class is steadily becoming very, very poor. In fact, I was thinking about it in the pool this morning. After your income taxes, after your dividend taxes, after your VAT, you still have capital gains taxes, and on your death, you have a final tax of 25% or 20%. There's not much wealth or personal wealth being created by the middle class in South Africa. So your middle class in South Africa today, someone who earns a salary of 40 or 50,000 or even more, after living expenses, after taxes, there's not much left.
Well, that's your briefing for today. Look forward to being back in your company again tomorrow. Until then, cheerio.